So, how to approach this? Now, I kind of did this in the other video, so I don't want to repeat myself about the hypocrisy of Aaron pronouncing on Neil Gaiman's recent accusations. Now, let's be brutal. Let's hypothetically, for this video, assume this is true. The accusations are true. Now, you might have a way to get out of this, that what's happening with old Aaron, and for those totally in the dark and like, what are you talking about? Aaron also has a set of accusations against him by many women, and being the same thing. Hypothetically, what if these accusations are real? Right? Because these women could be lying, could be possible. And let's be very sharp and specific. Although, again, this video came down. So Jenna put out 2 videos. In the second video, she did say the A word. She said what happened is abuse. But now she took down the video and she's clarifying. I already did this in another video, so I don't want to repeat myself. But basically, that it was bad. It was bad. There was a lot of screaming. There's a lot of back and forth. However, she did some bad things too. So I'm not clear where we stand. Again, this is just a hypothetical to show an angle that probably most people don't know, because Aaron is not as big a celebrity as Neil, but it's the F word, right? There's something that a lot of people are going into with Neil Gaiman that he has, right? He has said he's a feminist. He's a male feminist. He tweets about this because I follow him a lot on Twitter, and he definitely tweets this a lot about women's issues, women's causes, so on and so forth. Retweets feminist stuff all the time. He's had a big back and forth with J.K. Rowling of who's the bigger, better feminist. It's quite amusing from my eyes. And now definitely it gets into a very weird situation, given that J.K. is very anti-trans, but somehow pro-feminist, and a lot of people called her out on that one. So I guess the basic gist is that Neil is being uncovered as a phony, right? Because if these accusations are true, he can't be the feminist he proclaimed himself as. Now, let's be very fair and let be very explicit. When Aaron was covering the Danny Masterson case, he never explicitly said he was a feminist. But I think, and again, we can't avoid this because this became very noticeable, that a lot of his supporters are women. And we know this because they show up, right? Farrell Cheryl, Barb, Goldie, you go through the list. Marilyn, it's kind of Rabbit, although now Rabbit is retreating. It was really weird. Kelly Copter, you go through the list. It was very weird and strange because they were told about this. They interviewed Aaron on this, and Aaron explicitly admitted, yes, I did this, I did that, and tried to explain away things. And I think this was never brought out, but this is always in the background that, well, how could he be so passionate about Danny Masterson and the Jane Does? He brought this up recently. Saying, you know, the true heroes here are my Jane Does, these women who dared speak out. Now, Neil, again, let's be clear, he is in way more trouble because he does put out the message saying, believe the women. The women are survivors. I believe all of them. They're all feminists. They're all beautiful. Okay? That may be a caricature, but that is not very far from his position. He really took it to an extreme. So, okay, he's in a lot of trouble because now it's like, okay, we believe women, 99% of the time, but this is the 1% of the time we don't believe women. That's hard to square. So that's a complete logical contradiction. Aaron never, ever explicitly said he was a feminist, but you'd have to be really naive to not see what he was doing. He was clearly try to weaponize the gender of these victims, saying, oh, these women, what Danny did is, oh my God, and Scientology, the evil of Scientology. And he does this a lot. He pounds the drum on this quite a few times. And you're like, well, okay, well, maybe he's actually honestly outraged what happened to these women, but that can't be right because of what he's done. Or you could be very technical and say, well, you know, Aaron is bad, but he didn't do what Danny Masterson did. Well, this is where Neil Gaiman is very clarifying. Whether you like it or not, this really clarifies a lot because a lot of what Neil Gaiman is being accused of, like, it is very similar or identical to what Aaron was accused of. And yet, and still, you look at his page and you still find publicly some people still defend him. And I'm like, what exactly is the standard? What exactly is the standard? Now, again, to be fair, some people are consistent. They don't like what Aaron did. They don't like what Neil Gaiman did. So there's consistency there. However, that's pretty rare. So I wonder what Feral Cheryl will do with this, because you find them all the time on his channel and they're constantly supporting him. In fact, he got a lot of support for this Neil Gaiman video. And I'm like, are these people living in a dream world? Did they not realize what happened in the last 2 years? I am honestly puzzled. Like, how can they put it together coherently that Neil Gaiman, fraud, fake feminist, but Aaron is still trustworthy? I can understand people being like, oh, well, okay, I guess he's a little bit of a fraud, okay. But they're not realizing the feminist fraud card, because he does say this over and over and over again. Like, I protect women's. Guys, women, you can come to me. Give me the information. If you have suffered abuse in Scientology, you must come to me. I will help you. Okay, well, if that's the standard, and again, Aaron's defense is that this is all private. What happens in private is private. Then it's like, why is he making the video about Neil Gaiman? What's the difference? Because I guess it's that he is accusing Neil of being a current Scientologist. He doesn't need to do that, by the way. There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence he's an actual Scientologist. There is evidence he supports Scientology. That is true. It is really hard to believe he's not helping the church. That is true. But he didn't say that. He's like, Scientologist Neil Gaiman. I'm like, Scientologist Neil Gaiman? So is that the standard, that the abuse by the Scientologist is super special? Okay. So what happens with Scientology and women, that's special. But Aaron is not in Scientology. Ergo, when it comes to him and women, that's private. But Neil is in Scientology. That's what justifies the difference. Because I am being a little polemical. I am being a little snarky. But I'm asking a serious question, because it just seems like this whole thing just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Neil and faulting him being a fake feminist, I get that. But I don't know. It did seem like Aaron was, and again, to be fair, you got to take responsibility. But I would assume if people asked me, like, what, just like over a year ago, saying, what is Aaron's thing? Well, publicly, and again, privately, it could be totally false, but publicly, he's like putting himself out as, yes, he is protecting, saving women. That is the impression you would get from these videos, that he has a zero tolerance. Guys, I will not allow it. My Jane Does, I will not allow any abuse of the Jane Does. You say anything, you are the enemy now. Okay, so you can't even be critical of the Jane Does. You are an enemy. But then we try to apply the same standards. Like, no, that's private. That's not, there's no public relationship. Guys, me and Jenna, we never announced it. So if you bringing up Jenna and her making the accusation of abuse, that does not exist, apparently. That does not exist. It never happened. It never existed. Okay. And again, we are in a tricky situation because the video is gone. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to make of that. I know Jenna would say, well, we're going to move on in a certain way. She's not forgiving him. I want to make clear, she's not forgiving what Aaron did, but she's saying they're coming to some kind of negotiation. Okay, but so what? The video has been put out. You did say these things, so it's there now. It's there for the record that you did make the accusation. If she doesn't want to pursue a criminal charge, that's fine, but we're still left with, well, this woman and that woman and that woman has accused you. So I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, again, that was not really the focus of Aaron. He was concentrating on the Scientology angle, but again, just the overall public image, I don't get it, because it still happens. People are like, I don't think you understand, is that the important thing is Aaron is exposing the church. And you say, well, what is he exposing? And you can be clever and say, well, he's exposing the financial crimes. He's just exposing the crimes. And it's like, oh, isn't there also the abuse of women? Isn't abuse of women something that he, quote, exposes? Right. Now, logically, you don't have to be a feminist to be concerned with that, but he really did use very feminist rhetoric. I mean, you'd have to be really naive not to pick that up. And that was used in his defense for a long time, saying, guys, Aaron could never do this. Look at what he did with the Jane Does and Danny Masterson. So, I don't know, I guess the best defense of Aaron is that he is just greedy. He only did it for the money. Don't believe any. He doesn't care about the Jane Does. He only cares about the money. That's it. It's just a money thing. It's purely a money thing. So it just follows there's no hypocrisy, because He only did it for the money, right? So the reason he's not going to do videos on his own, right, accusations, because he's not going to make money. There you go. That's it. That's the logical consistency. So Neil is a fake feminist and a capitalist. But Aaron Smith-Levin, capitalist. He was always a capitalist. That's say, well, who is Aaron? Aaron's a capitalist. He's an evil capitalist, but he's a capitalist. It's like, oh, well, okay, well, there you go. That solves everything.